Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to On Your Mental. This is the podcast that shares candid, open, and sometimes vulnerable conversations between and about men. This week, we're celebrating Father's Day, and we've got a new dad. Brandon Beavis is here, joined by his brother, Jesse Valenciano, so a new uncle. And we have a great conversation about what fatherhood looks like to young men and what we think it's going to look like in the future. So we hope y'all enjoy. If you're not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Leave a like if you like it. Leave a comment. And we'll see you in a second when it starts. Peace. Bien.
Are we on God mode?
Are we on God mode?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
It's a term when you keep the gain really low and you just like stick the mic in your fucking throat.
No, we're not on God mode.
Yeah, ASMR shit.
Is that a thing?
Will they be able to hear me if I go like this?
Yes.
When you're talking and when you need to breathe, just like Taste Monday from Chocolate Rain.
Dude, I love that the little text on the bottom of his video. Classic. I move away from the mic to breathe in.
Yeah.
So good. Well, welcome Brandon. Welcome Jesse. The Beavis are in the house. Beavis brothers.
Woo.
Well, should I be calling you Jesse Valenciano
because
these days?
this is going to be on a social media platform. It is actually Jesse Valenciano.
All right. Well, there you go. We got
But
Jesse Valenciano.
for the sake of the podcast, you can call me a Beavis.
A Beavis.
Yeah.
Everybody listening, watching, these two are brothers. So if you don't know, you've been on separate podcasts a couple times on our show, right?
Yeah.
This is your first time on the couch together, casting couch.
Feels good.
This is the first
Whoa.
family podcast?
This is the first family podcast, actually. Yeah.
Well, you've had the fans on before.
Not
No,
together.
Oh.
I've had Ben on and I've had Christine on.
Yeah. Christine was with Louise, I think,
Yes.
that one time.
So we're the
Yes.
first family on.
You're the first family on.
Feels so good, man.
Keeps holding the leg. Well, welcome to the podcast. Welcome back, I say. And today we're talking about Father's Day. Father's Day is June 19th. Here's your friendly reminder to you two live to remember Father's Day is coming up. And I guess you as well.
Yeah.
Not me, everybody. I don't have one of those. So we're going to be talking about things related to fatherhood and how that relates to men's lives. But I wanted to start off by asking you, Brandon, first. What's it like becoming a new dad? You just recently became a dad. What's changed?
A lot has changed, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. But I think it's kind of what you'd expect. Like, people say the usual things, like you're going to get busy and no sleep and that type of thing. It's basically that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that. But it's been amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing if I had to just summarize it up. Yeah, wouldn't have it any other way. It's great. Our baby's 4 months now, baby girl, and she's doing amazing. I mean, just amazing, honestly.
Healthy, that's what's important.
Healthy, everyone's healthy. Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool, man. It's so weird. We've talked about before who would be the first kid or first one to have a kid, right?
Well, that's funny. Like
And
last
that's
time,
you, right?
okay, you don't remember this, but the last time I was on, so it was probably like almost a year ago now. And whatever we were talking about, you were like, it's not like we're having kids anyways, like anytime soon, right? I forget what we were doing. You're like, yeah, we're not having kids, dude. And at the time, Vivian had just gotten pregnant, like
Right.
literally like in the week or 2 weeks. So I kind of like kept my mouth shut just because, more or less out of respect for her, because she's the one going through the changes, and could be a lot of complications.
Yes.
So you don't want to like announce it to the world
Right.
until you kind of know people are healthy and stuff. But it was just funny when you said that because I kind of knew, but I knew. I did know,
Yeah. My mom, that's a good point too. I mean, I saw something today recently, but my mom has said before, like she doesn't believe in baby showers until the baby's born, because then it's like, what if? What if something goes wrong?
So much crazy stuff that you come to learn, how things maybe don't go as planned, and it's like so much more common than you think.
Yeah.
kinda
When you're a
sad.
kid, you think like pregnancy and then
Yeah.
birth, simple, right?
Yeah.
Like kids there and then now you go.
No.
But you hear about all the weird shit that happens during birth. It's crazy. Not gonna happen.
What I'd like to know, how much sleep are you getting these days?
That's the question I
Is
get
it
from
like-
every single person. It's literally the first person.
It's like the scariest part for me, I feel like.
Yeah, good question. Surprisingly for me, sleep is very, very good.
Nice.
And I just have to thank Viv for that. But the first 2 or 3 months is freaking brutal, man.
Yeah.
But after like a 2 to 3 month period, it gets better. And I think basically in the first couple months, the baby's like literally in survival mode. Like just, I need to survive. And like, they don't know what's going on. They haven't figured
Just a blob.
They haven't figured things out. There's a blob
Yeah.
that just like needs to like live. And the first like couple months were really, really bad.
Yeah.
Like basically you throw all sleep out. You try to kind of make these plans and like set these schedules, like shifts and whatnot. None of that works. And in the moment, it's very stressful, and yeah, you're basically like sleep deprived and everything just becomes that much more tough. But now that she's 4.5 and she's got a schedule down, like she sleeps every day at 7 to 7:30. That's her bedtime. She obviously wakes up still throughout the night to feed. But now that we're in that phase, sleep's really good. And Viv lets me sleep through the night. So that's a huge thing. There's only so much that I think like a male parent can do at night, you know, like I can't
Other
wake
than
up and
taking
feed
a-
the baby, and she doesn't
If
need
they're
diaper changes
breastfeeding,
through the
yeah,
night.
yeah.
So she's really good about letting me, you know, get my rest, knowing that I have to do work in the morning, this or that. So my sleep is good.
That's a win.
Yeah.
Crazy Uncle Jess.
Yeah.
How's it been for you seeing, first of all, your brother becoming a dad? Has that changed how you see him at all?
Yeah. I don't think we've really talked about it other than just me being there whenever he needs me and just kind of checking
Crazy
in every
Uncle
once in a
Jess,
while.
man.
But
Yeah.
it's cool, man. It's really cool. Yeah, I think like I have a lot of questions for you because I've seen from a distance the process of raising a infant, and it seems like it's going well. And you've been glowing. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's just like a new dad glow.
Yeah, I actually got called handsome today. I was saying, fucking my father-in-law called me handsome. He said I'm looking more handsome than usual.
Good for you, man.
Well, you've been going to the gym too.
That too, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting because like I'm not nowhere near ready to have a kid, but I've been like, but even before Brandon had his kid, I was like kind of starting to like think about what it would be like. And of course I have the dog, and you know, I think you're right in that there's a lot of crossover between like how you need to take care of a dog in order to keep it alive, and not just alive, but like happy. Right?
That's the thing. Some people like in the apartments, all those dogs, those little yappy dogs, they don't even take them out. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
So that's like,
You can be a
you're not
bad
being a
dog
good,
owner.
yeah, you're not being a proper dog owner in that case. No offense to those dog owners.
Yeah.
Was a really
Full
good,
offense to those dogs.
really good fish owner either though.
Was that?
A really good fish owner though. That was actually your first fish.
Yeah.
Remember, I got you that fish.
Was his name Matt?
Matt.
Yeah, I do remember the fish.
That thing sat dead in that tank for months, didn't it? That little bull.
He was sleeping, bro. No, I took care of Matt. He was
Zombie
good. And then I
Matt.
got the hamster, and then that was great. And then I got the dog, and then that was better. And next step is kid.
Bo's gonna be laying there in the living room for like freaking 10 years after she's dead.
I took care of my fish. I honestly don't know what the fuck you guys are talking about. I love that fish, man. It's a good fish. I love that
well
fish like you
fed.
love your child.
Yeah.
I have a question. Oh,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because we haven't really had a chance to talk about it too much, but and maybe this is getting a little deep, a little quick, but let's.
That's what the
do it.
podcast is
Shoot
here
it.
for,
If
right?
You guys are
Shoot
cool
it.
with it. I know that our dad has expressed this, but I've heard it from other parents as well. But it's like when he describes what it's like to have a kid, it's just like you see you see him feeling like how, like the way that he would describe it is it's so amazing. Like it's just the most amazing thing in the world to
It is
have
amazing.
a
That's
kid.
yeah.
Well, yeah, but like
I see what
like
you're saying.
like what is that feeling?
That feeling is there. You know, it's really strange. Like if you would ask me that right after birth, you know how they say when I saw the baby, it was like a eye-opening thing. Like for me, it wasn't like that. Obviously, it was crazy. Like literally, we started tearing up and crying the second the baby came out, and it was like all doing these things. Like its arms were crazy. It was insane. But like if you were to ask me that same question now, like that love that you can't even really explain, it's built for me over time. I could see with maybe a mother, it being like right away. They've carried the baby, they felt the baby, they see the baby. But for me, and again, maybe this is just me, this could be a weird thing, but it's something that built. But now I'm at a point where, yeah, it's hard to put into words, like kind of the type of feeling you have, but it's just like it's like a love. Like it's just like a crazy amount of love.
Well,
really.
that makes sense because we've only been able to ask Dad that question. He's only been able to tell us when we're old enough to understand him.
True.
And that would mean he had time to like experience
That's
and this
true.
love to grow.
And it would
to
obviously, I could only see it getting bigger, the love getting stronger and stronger and stronger with time. But I do hear a lot of times that people will say, like, from the moment I saw the baby, it was right off the bat. Right? You do hear that too.
Yeah, oh, for sure. That's interesting how. Yeah.
Is it a love that you would say that you've not like felt before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a different type of love. Like it's like you can love
That's
your
cool.
you can love your spouse or you can love like a girlfriend or boyfriend and it's like I love them. But like it's basically like a little version of you in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's like it's crazy. I don't know. I'm so bad at picking the words. But
okay.
amazing. It's just like great.
Yeah. I love that you brought up your dad, Jess, because that'll open up the rest of the questions for all of us here. So nice to hear from you a little bit about your experience. Maybe a little more from you, Jess, about being an uncle, if there's anything you wanted to add.
Oh, it's just cool, bro. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited to like come along with you on this journey because I know
Sweet.
I'm going to be right there, and it's gonna be great. This kid's gonna be amazing.
It's gonna be a
At
lot
the
of
very
fun,
least, she's gonna be sick at golf. That's my job.
Start swinging.
Yeah.
He says she likes flipping.
Dude, she's getting flipping. She can flip.
Burgers?
So yeah, she flips, flipping. But I think she's gonna be a very active like baby.
Nice.
Like I don't know if it's too early to tell, but apparently you can start to tell babies' personalities like pretty soon, right? Some are more fussier than others. Some are more stubborn. Some are more laid back, and like. We definitely got a fussier one, you know? A little bit more
A lot of energy.
attitude.
Huh? A little more attitude, yeah.
She's got Beavis in her.
Yeah, right? But and she definitely wants to move.
Asking 100 questions in class. That type of attitude.
But no, so she's got a funny character already that we could see, and like in terms of the movement, now that she can move, so she can flip back and forth, and she's like she just wants to go. You can tell. And she gets frustrated when she can't go. Like she can't really move, but she's very close. Like I think she'll be crawling soon.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Joseph and I were talking about like baby movements and how basically all they're doing their entire existence is like building the muscles and like mind body connection.
Because when they first come out, they have no control over their arms and anything. They can't control it. They're flinging around for like at least a couple months. Like
There's this guy. Still hasn't figured it out.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so funny to see their little arms. Like they'll wake themselves up from napping because they'll be like, you know, it's But now she can control it. But yeah, they're just trying to figure out how to control things.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see
man.
the progress, man. Literally, like every couple days, like she does something new, and like when you see them in this state where they're not doing anything, like literally newborn, to like where she is today. It's crazy how much she's changed, and like this is just the start, dude. They grow so fast. Yeah. It would suck to miss it for whatever reason if you're like a parent that for some reason like isn't around or whatever.
She making any funny noises?
Yeah. Oh yeah. She makes all the noises. She giggles now, so if we say funny things, she'll go on a little laughing tangent, and she makes all these funny like sounds. Yeah.
I feel like that's one of like the top feelings is making a little kid laugh.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? And then you don't want to leave that.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You got to keep feeding into it. Like let them keep giggling with you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. The rest of us here, we're going to talk about dads. We're going to talk about the importance of that. So congrats on becoming a dad, Brandon. Congrats on becoming an uncle, Jess. And the first question for all of us, and we'll all take turns kind of answering this thing, is what has your father's role been to you in your life? I can kick it off because I'm easy again. Don't have one, so I've had no role. That role of like a dad figure that I've talked about it on other episodes, it's kind of presented itself in various people in my life. I looked at my uncle at one point. I looked at my mom's friend Brad at one point. Like there have been different people who have seen as like a father figure, but never had a consistent father in my life. So curious to hear from all of you. What role has your father played for you in your lives?
Cabs, you didn't talk much. Well, I could talk about this because we had this discussion. I was talking with Viv too. I think what role has he played? Obviously,
every single role.
Yeah, maybe someone else started because I left. Cabs.
Well, in my life, because I've spent more time with majority of my life has been with my dad rather than my mom. I would say like I wouldn't even consider him it wouldn't be like a role model, because role model you take certain traits. It would be like everything is from him pretty much, like personality, like work ethic and all that stuff. So it's more than a role model in that sense, you know.
And maybe to build off that, like, which is what I was gonna say, is like when you're growing up and you have your dad or your mom, but let's say your dad, it's like you don't really see them as a person in and of themselves. You just see them as dad.
Yeah.
And everything they do is like what you come to like. It's all you're exposed to, and that's just all it is. But now that you know I've gotten older, you come to realize that he's just a person with his own traits and his own characteristics, but they portray such, like, you look up to them so much that those characteristics make it, like, they shape you really. So I don't know if that was to build on yours, but
yeah, that's pretty much what I meant.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of funny looking at it now. Like I'm thinking, looking at this question, all the times where I'd be getting lectured from my dad, and he'd be saying like the same shit over and over again. I'd hear maybe like once a week, every week for like years on end. And it'd be like stupid shit where I'd be like, I'm trying to tune it out. And you're realizing that that's the stuff that actually matters later on. And you've picked it up subconsciously.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. I think that when we get older, we start to, you made the point of it then, like your dad, you've been told as a kid what he thinks about like raising you as a child, right? You mentioned that like just a minute ago. You described his feeling being a father, right? And you become older, and then you start to understand that a little bit more and more. It's like as we get older, we start to think about what our parents meant to us and what they were trying to teach to us and the things they were trying to like impart onto us as far as behavior goes. So yeah, I think that you're right. You start to see that more. You
recognize it more rather than just being in it and just being like, stop lecturing me. It's like there was almost something behind. Yeah, you start to realize why they were lecturing you or why they were doing things such a certain way, because it was shaping you. But when you're in the moment, especially growing up, I think you're too young to like understand that really.
How about you, Jess?
I think like obviously, especially when you're very young, like when you're very dependent, like I feel like that was the case for me and my dad. It was like, you know, dad knows everything, right? Dad's always right. But I don't know if it's necessarily a problem, but something that I experienced growing up, especially as I went through like early high school years, was like I started questioning everything about my parents. I don't know at the time if it was like the right place. Like it was like I was questioning him because like, you know, my brain would stop at like, no, your shit doesn't make sense. Shut the fuck up. Like, and I don't like that. So I'm like, clearly you don't know what you're talking about. Like that kind of thing. But now that as I've gotten older, my questions are like as I'm learning more about myself and I'm developing into a man who's hopefully eventually going to be a father, like I'm starting to look into things like, okay, well, like I think to times where either mom or dad would get like angry or like frustrated. And then my question is like, where is that coming from? Because like when I look at myself, like I look at my anger and when I get frustrated or I get short tempered, and it's like I immediately try to identify and like, you know, see if it's like reasonable or rational. So my questions when it comes to like my dad and my experience with that is like, well, where does that come from? And I think where that comes from is like understanding that they are just people. Like you're a dad now, right? And you're closer to me than I am to dad, obviously. So it's like I can kind of see how your personality and who you are and what you've been through and your circumstance is going to affect your child. But we don't question that as kids, right? And then I don't know if it's like I feel like there's like it hurts me to say it because like even the idea of like questioning my dad because he's done so much and like he's been the best dad I could ever ask for. I'd never asked for anything more, and that's like the overlying truth of it all, or overarching truth of it all. But it's like I always question, and I still have questions. But what's cool is like now that we're getting older, like I'm like much more open to talking to my dad about the questions that I have, and he's much more open to answering them, and it's almost kind of becoming this like interesting dynamic where this kind of like ambiguity of father son is becoming more of like a let's seek to understand each other as humans,
as individuals,
right? So it's cool. It's very, very cool, and it feels very good. It feels like a good step in the father son
dynamic
relationship.
At some point you must reach a point with your parents where you become an adult or a peer to them in some way, and it starts to make it clear that like I'm not just taking care of you anymore. You've been self-sufficient. You're okay. Now let's talk about the real things. So your role for your fathers has been everything to you, but you question some things, Jess.
It is absolutely everything.
He questions a lot of things.
But that's good.
He's a questioner. He's a challenger, you know?
Well, my moon is in Aquarius. So.
Have you looked that up?
Yeah.
My moon's in Leo.
I don't even know what that means.
We're going to talk about this later.
I don't know what it is, but that's all I know.
Oh, okay.
I'm a Taurus?
Astrology stuff.
Yeah.
Huh.
I don't know any of it.
Well, no, Jesse definitely like that's your personality, right? And I think when you were in it as a young, like you said, coming through high school, you probably didn't quite understand that was who you were as a person. Now that you're older, like being able to understand that you are a very inquisitive person and someone who does want to like really dive deep into things, that helps everything out. Because does that make sense?
100%. Keep going.
Yeah, that's
it. Yeah.
Almost like in a philosopher type of way, you know,
It
questioning
is. Yeah, it's
existence.
like
and not necessarily
Yeah.
existence, but questioning things,
Yeah,
finding
it's-
the root.
Yeah, it's like ask the questions that you have, right? Regardless of like whether they're right or wrong. It's like I have questions. Like my goal as of recently specifically is to just ask the questions. Like see my dad as see my dad for what he is, which is like an individual who has so much knowledge and experience and is smart and intelligent and very similar to me. And like take advantage of the fact that like he loves me unconditionally. Right? I can't ask questions that I would ask my dad to anybody. Right?
Yeah. And I think maybe just to add on, like now maybe seeing me as a father and you know better, like you know all my flaws and you know me as a person, like I'm not I'm not the way that you would look up to dad. Not even close. You know, one thing about my dad was that I always pictured him as this picture perfect person. I don't know if that was the same as like your dad's and whatnot, but you know what I mean, right? Dad was always perfect. Like,
Picture perfect how?
Like
just
you know
always,
my dad. You know my dad.
Yeah, I know your dad.
You know what I mean when I say he's picture perfect?
Because I would have like I don't know
A
if
different
you mean-
ideal of picture perfect.
I don't know if he's like picture perfect as like a human or
As a
picture
human,
perfect
yeah,
as like
empathetic,
the dad.
like
Oh,
truthful.
okay, yeah, I don't know if my dad. I would think of him.
Gotcha.
I would think him just he just always knows what to do in that
Right.
sense. But I wouldn't say like picture perfect.
In terms of a human being type thing.
Sure, yeah, like I think he's the best that he can be. Wouldn't say he's like the role model for a perfect human.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
But I know what you're saying because
Yeah.
it was our dad. So I know what you're talking about. And I think like our mom and dad got divorced very young and dad kind of took over. And I feel like, and I haven't talked to dad about this yet, but I feel like the amount of like pressure he must have felt to like be the perfect dad.
role model, the
Yeah.
perfect everything. Like it was like, to me, that's what a dad is, right? Is that perfect role model. But now that I'm in this position, like I know that I'm not the perfect role model, and I want to be authentic to myself, not necessarily emulating the way that he raised me, because again, he's a completely different person, and I won't be that person, right? We're
Yeah,
very, very different.
Like, well, he had our parents divorced, and his job and his situation at the time called for him to be super dad, and it was like, you're not gonna hopefully not have to go through that, right? So your circumstance, the situation in which you is like optimized for raising your child is going to be entirely different
than what we
and
were raised in.
How
Yeah,
that's
that's a
gonna
good point,
how
yeah.
that's going to like transpire is like, if you're doing like financially well, like you can spend more time than dad could with us, right? And that's going to create an entirely different person in your kid than it did with us.
Yeah, I guess it increases the influence you have too, right? It's funny that you talk about questioning things, because it's like as you get older and you start to question anything, like if you question stuff at a job, for example, right? That's how you get change to start to happen, right? Do you feel like asking questions to your dad is pushing change in the relationship and the dynamic of the relationship you have with your dad?
I think it depends on where it comes from, right? Because if I'm questioning him because I'm an angsty teen and like
That's different.
That's different, right?
That's
But-
just I think I'm right. I think I know
yeah,
how
yeah.
the
Like
world
I
works.
think I'm right. I think you're wrong. Prove
Yeah.
to me that you're right, right? And then there's a lot of things that a teenager would question and be like, "Oh, well, there's a lot of things that I wouldn't understand, couldn't really be explained just like that in an argument, right?" But yeah, I think like now with the mindset that I'm in and the relationship that I have with my dad, it's like, yeah, questions definitely push things, because now like I'm a man and I have 25 years of life experience in an entirely different world than my dad grew up in.
True.
So if we can both understand that and respect each other as people, then it's like there's so much like information sharing and learning that can be done. And I think that in that case, if those are where the questions come from, then it's amazing.
That pushes that relationship. Yeah.
I personally question my dad just to try to take him off. Yeah, I do it more and more now, even more than ever,
Just to see how
and it works. Yeah,
Why do you watch so much CNN?
yeah.
He fucking
We get
loves
into
that
heated
question.
arguments anytime we bring up CNN or anything of that sort. We get into heated arguments. Like it's almost comedic.
It's entirely comedic.
It's like it's
Yeah,
so
I love
fun.
it.
And Jesse's always there as like
I'm the mediator.
I'm pushing one side, and then my dad's arguing the other side, and Jesse's always in the middle, like mediating.
I
Like,
have to
brings
keep-
you back in.
because I'm
Yeah.
not very good at explaining necessarily like all my points of view, like getting them words out right. And Jesse will often fill in what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah.
But, I'll kind of step in and be like, yeah, this is what you meant.
Yeah.
But just a reminder, you're both dumb as fuck.
I do the exact same thing when my oldest brother Amr and my dad are arguing. Like they'll be there, and they're like both fucking like super stubborn, right? They'll have one side and they'll both dig their heels into like their topics. And there's no way they're even giving like this. There's no way neither one of them saying sorry or saying they're wrong at any like little point. And I'll try to like I'll sometimes fill in, but I'll just be sitting there like thinking like you guys are both like
idiots.
Yeah, you guys are both idiots.
See, and that's the thing is like, and that's what I think it's like I think characteristically it is a father-son thing.
Yeah.
But like if you're in the argument and when you're in the argument, like you're frustrated, you're pissed off, and you have these emotions. But if you understand the dynamic of what's happening, it's like two men just like going at it with each other, and both of them are just like banging their heads against each other, getting nowhere. And I'm just like, it's just funny like, as a viewer. But the thing is, for you, it's like I can see the smile on your face. You're doing it. Like, you know what you're doing. I don't think Dad knows. Like, he doesn't.
Exactly.
He's and a few times he's been like, he's basically been like I'm very disappointed that he's literally said. He's literally been like, dude, I'm disappointed that you believe that.
Dude, we were at the Terminal City Club, and that's what you were for like 40 minutes. Brandon was just taking the opposing side, and then by the end of it, Dad was just like, I'm disappointed.
Shout out to Mark Beavis.
Shout out to Mark. He's such a good dad.
Oh, man.
Happy Father's Day to Dad.
Happy Father's
Happy
Day.
Father's Day.
Yeah.
Happy Father's Day. And that next question I want to ask us all is, what role do you think you want to play for your future kids then? Since we've talked about kind of what role your fathers have played for you, what role do you want to play for your kids?
Well, I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
I think I just want to be the most authentic dad I can be, doing, like I said, not trying to emulate what my dad did for me, but being myself, and obviously making sure that I am leading by a good example, right? From a moral standpoint, from an ethical standpoint, from like a family dynamic standpoint. And financially, I want her to always look at me like a hardworking dad and one that's providing. But definitely, I think it might be very different in the modern day. We may not look at dads the same way that we did when we grew up, right? Our dads were always, not always, depending on your family dynamic, but they were always like, working away, and in many cases professional and very job driven and everything. But the world that we live in now, it's just so different with the types of jobs and the types of people and the social media, everything.
It doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be that way. And I don't think it would make sense to even try to make it that way.
No.
Good point.
Right? That's a good point. That is a good point.
That's a good way. That's a cool like thought process.
Yeah.
But I find it, I'll let you speak in a moment there, Jess. Sorry to interrupt or cut you off, but I find it interesting still that you do see yourself wanting to be the provider, because I do too.
Yeah.
When I think of me wanting to be a father one day, I want to make sure that those kids are fucking set. I do everything within my power to make sure that those kids are fine.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think, so basically, like, for you guys know, I have my business, and that's what provides for our family, right? Viv's at home. And a current struggle that I'm working on, like developing and improving on, is finding that balance between providing and making money and working, and also being present for the baby, and finding that perfect balance. Because there's so many cases where I'm just at home, not so much now, but especially earlier, where like I'm there, I'm maybe holding the baby or near the baby, but like my mind is just somewhere else. It's at work, right? And that's evenings, weekends, it doesn't matter. And I think a good part of being a good dad for me in my circumstance is to be able to provide, but also to have the equal amount of balance on the family side. I think that's very important. And it's something that's it's easier said than done, to be honest.
I had a thought, but I'm going to leave it. I don't want to go with it.
Saw you pointing or something.
I had a thought, but I don't want to add it. It's not relevant enough.
I feel like that doesn't change. Like the world that we're living in and how to be a dad, like what needs to be done in order to make money, obviously that's changed. Right? There's still dads out there that like still think it's a good idea to just be entirely firm with their kid and get them a good job. Like that's their job as a dad. Like I feel like listen, I feel like in today's world, like in our generation, it's like that's not enough. And we see that
so
because
like one dimensional.
It's so one dimensional. And we see like now we see the result of that, right? There are people in their 30s, 40s, and we know this through
through your work, right? It's like we meet people who like, I mean, in the context of your work, it's like who don't have like a financial backing and understanding. But like when you like understand and start talking to people, you realize there's like the structure, the parenting structure that they had grown up with was clearly very much like get a job, like the classic like harsh but like absent father that like definitely loves you but like will never express it.
Never
Like, that was
says
that,
I
and the
love you,
reason
yeah.
was because the way to survive and the way to do well was to like get a job, right?
That's all you have to do. If you get a job, your family's going to be
Yeah,
fine.
and then
you
you've-
need to learn that from me.
and you've done your job as
Yeah.
a dad.
Yeah.
That's it.
That
Right?
shit don't fucking fly anymore.
We see that.
No.
And even you know, like dads, our parents' generation was like that. Like their parents were even more so like Industrial Revolution. I don't know what the fuck that was, but like, you know, like it was just get a job, work, blue collar work. Like where we live, that doesn't work anymore. So first of all, you've done
And
a good.
that's a different dynamic, to be fair, too. There are still places in the world where that's kind of like what you got to do, you know?
Yeah. But is that enough to be a good dad?
A good dad? No.
No, that's my point.
No.
Is like there are people who just do that. Right?
Like they think their job is to raise to give the yeah, huh?
Do you know what I mean? Like we see that, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That it's almost like the bare minimum that a good father could do would be get you to a place where their kids are set on their own and they're able to work and provide for their next family. But
Yeah.
what more can you do as a father? Like that's the question that we're asking,
Yeah.
is like there needs to be more to be a great father.
Yeah.
To be whatever role you want to be in that child's life.
Yeah, and that's my thing is like the dad that I want to be. Like I'm not going to stop at making sure my kid gets a good job and a good education. It's like I'm going to be a fucking dad. Like
Well, let's hear it. I know what your plans for dad
okay,
are. Let's
cool.
hear it then.
Okay,
Let's
okay.
Tell
I
the
haven't-
world.
Okay, I haven't.
Let's be honest here.
I don't know.
It starts with
I think-
it starts with the Tiger Woods documentary. That's how you
Yeah.
always tell it. Have you seen the Tiger Woods documentary? That's how you start it every
yes,
single time.
yes.
What
Have, you seen,
Tiger Woods?
have you
No.
seen the Tiger Woods documentary?
I'm not.
Tiger Woods' dad.
better than The
Earl,
Last Dance?
Earl Woods. No, The Last Dance
Can't
is
be.
really good.
Apparently, it's pretty good though. The
The Tiger documentary was. I thought it was really good.
I'll watch
but
it.
Earl Woods, and it's a joke I make. It's like Earl Woods like was not the greatest father, but he crafted a like golf machine. It was like everything that you do is golf. Everything you do is. But again, that's like he was lacking in fatherly aspects.
To use that exact example, it's like you see a parent doing something for the kid that's for the betterment of themselves. They wanted to see this kid become this champion, but who knows if the kid wanted that?
Yeah, it
Like
was.
that was the goal from the onset of like giving birth to this child. Like, oh, I'm gonna get him into golf, and they're gonna be fucking become
Yeah,
Tiger
does
Woods.
that-
It was fucked because that's exactly what happened. Like Earl Woods had entire control over this kid's life, and it did exactly.
It did what he wanted it to do?
Exactly what it wanted to do, and that's the thing is like that was a dad's choice. He decided that like this kid's life is going to be golf, and it's going to be great because of golf. And then I mean, obviously, just like anybody else, he ran into issues, right? Like I don't know,
Alcoholism,
Tiger
drug
Woods issues.
abuse.
Sure.
But maybe that came
Like,
with
I
fame.
wonder-
Who knows?
I wonder if Tiger would say that he's happy with his life.
Yeah, like
right.
what?
Like he's had all the success, some
and
of the
happy with
greatest
his
in the world.
father.
But I wonder if like all said and done, if he's thankful for the way he was
Right.
raised, or if he regrets it. I don't know if it says that in the documentary.
I think every good man like appreciates the work that the father does, like regardless of the circumstance, as long as there's like an effort.
I think that's part of that. Like when we're talking about growing older, then you start to see things for what they were. Like maybe he would see his father, or a child would see their father having done the best they could and done what they thought was right for them. Regardless of maybe I felt shitty, or maybe Tiger Woods felt shitty about how he was raised, but maybe he thought, I see what my dad was doing. I see that my dad was trying to get me to this point, and it fucking worked in that scenario.
It reminds me of have you guys watched King Richard yet? Will Smith plays Venus and Serena Williams' father, and he's sounds similar to how Earl's Woods like with Tiger, but he would take them out to, they lived in Compton, and they would take them out to the tennis courts there like every single day, twice a day, and obviously it was like super hard on them, and people thought he was like a bad dad for taking them out like rain or shine out there, but he was trying to set them up to get out the hood.
Right.
So he was successful in that way.
But then again, it's like, did his job end there, or did he do did he do the things he needed to do to ensure that they felt like they could do whatever they wanted, right? That they were their own individuals, right? They could stop if they wanted, right? But still like instilled that the values that allowed them to become as successful as they were. It's like that's like a sick that's a sick dad, is if you can do both.
Yeah.
I guess my goal for becoming a father is getting as prepared as possible to like do both. Right? Like my kid's going to be a superstar athlete, but there's not going to be a doubt in his mind that like he's loved and that he's
so yeah, my choice, right? You're going to pick a boy.
Well, first kid's going to be a boy, second's going to be a girl. They're both going to be superstar athletes. Yeah.
But I get exactly what you're saying, though. So the kind of father that you would want to be to whatever kids you have would be that you want them to excel, but at the same time know that it's their choice.
Yeah, and last thing is it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, and it's like it all comes down to circumstance, right? It's like are you like, have you set up your life? Are you in a situation where you can be a father while taking the time to ask yourself like what the best, like am I as prepared as possible to be able to create the best offspring child?
Set them up for success. Support them. Cabs, what do you think?
No kids.
No kids. There we go. Boom. My turn. Yeah. You're still on no kids.
That
could be an answer
for now, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could. The main thing that turned me off was doing day camps for kids, and it was just like the one bratty kid in like the group of 30 that would just made it not worth it.
What if your kid wasn't the bratty kid?
Yeah, shit kid.
I know,
Shit
but then
kid's probably gonna be freaking awesome. One of the awesome ones that hangs out with you.
It just made me worry so much after that. Like I'd have to be
like, you wouldn't want to get stuck with a kid that's a brat.
Yeah. Like how do I like can some kids just be bratty no matter like
I think it's on you, man. I think it's on the parents.
Right?
I think it's how they were raised. Like
because then I'd just be worried about like I need to be
a good dad.
I'd want it to be like so methodical with the approach. I would want like to have my kid turn out a certain way.
Yeah.
I would want my kid to turn out with the same mindset that I have.
Yeah, but
like,
then why don't you just emulate that as a person? Like, I don't think it needs to be a methodical. You don't have to like tactically parent to not make them a brat. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm not trying to convince you.
No,
like,
I do know what you're saying. I don't know if I agree.
Okay, that's fair, right? But I disagree. Like, I think basically as a parent, mother or father, like pretty much now that we're older, if I looked at a kid that was like a bad kid or whatever, it's like probably parenting had something to do with that. A lack of a parent, a lack of structure, a lack of a role model. Like obviously you're going to have good kids that do bad things and vice versa. But in general, like the kids are going to learn from you, you know, you raised them. So I think a lot of the kids' personality and experience, not personality per se, they could still be like shy or whatever, like that's embedded, but how they are brought up, like you could essentially you could structure that, right?
Yes, so you mold everything.
You mold everything just based on being you. So like, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be so fearful of it. Maybe that ends up portraying onto the kid, and then they end up being a little brat. Like I mean,
there's just like I was at the community center the other day, and there's this kid sitting at the table with like parents around. He's like eating his lunch. And just being like so loud when he's eating, like he's like yelling at his like parents from like a couple. Super. I just fucking stupid.
What were the parents doing?
They weren't really doing anything. They were just like letting.
It's like raising a dog, man. Okay, so think about this: you have a crappy dog, right? It's probably because you don't freaking take the dog out, because you probably don't give the dog what it needs.
Discipline when you need to
discipline the dog. You didn't raise it properly as a kid. You didn't train it as a young baby, as a young puppy. Like you let it do whatever it wants, and now it's a bad dog. That's on you as the dog owner, right? And people will blame the dog. They'll say this dog's freaking crap, like, but it's you didn't give the dog what it needed, right? I don't see how a kid's not the same way.
I think the fact that you care so much about not fucking up as a potential future parent tells me that you would be a fucking sick dad.
Yeah.
But
I like that. But also you also don't want to get so caught up. I think a lot of our own personal stuff that we have in our head and the worries that we have and the struggles that we deal with, like that will also get portrayed to the kid too. You know? So like you also don't want to be so stuck up about it that it ends up like impacting the kid in a different way, maybe a way that you don't know, right? So it's like at the same time, it's also I think important that if you did decide to have a kid is to work on yourself to be in a position where you know
feel comfortable raising a kid. But like you said, maybe you don't even have the interest to do it. But I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I think it's a bad reason personally. To
Yeah,
be like,
I think it's
to
more
feel like
so
yeah.
the interest is not there at the moment.
And that's a completely separate
probably the
discussion.
first
That's a
important
completely
piece,
separate
yeah.
discussion.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
one thing I will say from now having the kid is that you basically sacrifice like everything. Like your life is over. You know, like your life is literally over for at least for now. It probably gets better. For real.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah.
It's over.
Probably.
Like we're filming this like it's like close to midnight, man. Because
11 o'clock. Dog.
yeah, this is like night times for me is my
Yeah.
free time, like when the baby goes to bed. But if you want to go to the gym and you want to do all your stuff and go to work and all this stuff, like you're gonna have to sacrifice a lot of that. And if you're just not in a position where you want to do that quite yet, then don't have a kid.
Jesse, you look like you have some thoughts.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. It's like there's like a bunch of people, like in terms of like how I view people and growth. It's like there are a lot of people who have kids before they should have kids.
Yeah,
And it's like, I mean,
think
there's
so.
obviously like a biological and time factors, but it's like what I feel like I would need in order to be ready to have a kid, it's all internal work. It's like all me, because it's not like, oh, how am I going to be ready to become a father? It's like, how am I going to be like right now, like the best me? Because if I'm not the best me and I still have shit to work on, and then I have a kid and then my life is over, it all becomes about this kid, then I think people become like resentful and they become like, they become stressed because they
good
haven't
point.
figured this
It
shit
is a good
out.
point,
So
yeah.
that's what I mean is like, there's so many people that I see. It's like, I mean, we're in our mid to late 20s now. It's like, how many of us could you imagine? Like we could probably name some friends that if they had kids right now, their kids would be fucked.
It just might not be the right time.
It's not their fault. It's just not the right time. They haven't done the growing necessary to be able to facilitate
Emotional
a child.
work.
Yeah.
When the mask falls down, always secure your own mask before helping or assisting a child.
100%.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean,
is that actually what it says? Because like
On
I
an
can see,
airplane,
I
on
can
an
see
airplane.
now having a kid, I can see a lot of parents just putting the kid's mask on first, going against the thing. I'm just saying, like I can see that happening.
But to use
I
that
probably
as
should
an
quickly put it on, then
analogy,
put mine on.
Right.
but to use
I mean,
that,
that's taking it literally. But
yeah. To use that as an analogy, that's a great analogy for being a good parent or being a good mentor, role model for anybody.
Well, I meant it towards like Jesse's point where you should build your own, like what you were saying,
Take
build
care
your
of
own
yourself
foundation
first.
before deciding to have a
Yeah,
kid.
because if you pass out with no oxygen, you can't help your baby, right? So you take care of yourself first, right? We just
That's
know
a good one. You got to take care of yourself to take care of the kid.
We just
Yeah,
we,
100%.
If
we,
you're, that's facts,
Yeah.
as they say.
That's a excellent segue. I mean, I'll share my thoughts really quick on what I think the role I would like to play for future kids. I would like my kid to see me as someone that they can go to about anything. I had the best relationship with my mom as far as like being able to go and talk to them. And I know like stereotypical shit that you'll see from dads portrayed in media. That's all that I ever grew up with, right? And it was always like, you'll get a real good heart to heart like once every fucking 5 years with the guy.
If that,
but I want to be present all the time. I want them to know like I'm here with your life. I'm engaged with you. You come to me with something that's
I
on
got
your
a question
mind.
for you. Do you think it's biologically harder for dads to be that role, like, or do you think it doesn't matter?
I don't think it matters.
No.
I think it comes down to how you've grown up, like understanding how fatherhood should look, right? Sometimes I consider myself lucky that I didn't have a shit dad.
Right.
You know what I mean? I grew up
Right.
and I didn't have to risk that. I had a great mom, and because of that, I want to be a great dad. So I didn't have to build an understanding of what fatherhood looks like from a bad example. I
One
didn't
could
have
even one could even argue that might make you a really good dad because you didn't have one.
Potentially,
You can
we'll
basically
see.
build that. You build that
see.
dad as you like.
got the
You have no
the
outside
motherly-
influences
yeah.
on you.
So you've got the motherly aspects in you
Yeah,
that you can be
yeah.
like the therapist to your kid also.
And that's
you know?
what I'd love to be for my kid one day. But anyways, that brings me to that next question. This is still a great segue here. Is the concept of mental health to us as future parents. I'm going to ask my mom this question actually soon. I'm planning something potentially might end up being on a podcast, but something related to what did mental health look like to our parents? Because mental health looks very different to us than I think it did to our parents. I think there's so much more understanding. It's still developing. Obviously, it's a newer thing still. But what's that going to look like to you as parents? Maybe I'll ask you that first, Brandon. What's that going to look like? Teaching your daughter about mental health and being aware of mental health and being in tune with that kind of thing. What kind of presence do you want there in her life?
I think, and Jess, you can feel free to chime in But comparing the generations, if I looked at my dad, I don't think we ever had a single discussion about mental health or anything regarding that. Like, it was just assumed that like emotions just weren't on the table. We never talked about emotions. And if we did, like, the one or two times, it was like really, really awkward and weird.
But what he did do really well was, like, when we were having troubles, like, he expressed, like, I'm there. Like,
okay,
I'm
yeah,
here
sorry.
for you.
So yeah, I didn't mean to come off that. He was extremely empathetic for us. He was extremely, but like, what the way I was positioning is, I never questioned dad's mental health. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Oh, 100%.
As a child, I never once considered it. Now I'm older, I can see, oh, maybe my dad was dealing with some stress. Maybe my dad was dealing with this or this. But you don't think about that as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at it more in the perspective of, as a child, like, there was never anything wrong with what dad did. You know what I mean? He just figured things out and did it and went fine. But at the same time, that never opened me up to, like, talking about mental health. Like, I only talk about mental health when I'm here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, the generation is changing to where, and me and Viv had conversations like this. Like, we want to be very open with our child about how we're feeling as parents.
I was just gonna ask.
It's
that.
it's a whole thing. Like, Viv's done a lot of research, so I'm just kind of echoing what she says. But basically, the parenting style nowadays that the studies are saying is the way to go is, like, literally like being open with the children and saying, like, you know, I'm feeling upset because of this, or I understand you're feeling upset because of this. Like, very, very rarely can I think of us talking to our parents and being like, understanding why they were upset or questioning that. It was just one way. This is the way it was. And for the most part, it was really good. But to answer your question, how I would want to raise my child or children is to just be much more open. Not so much an open book like you. Like, you're very, very open. I'm not ever going to be that open personally. That's just a personal thing.
Yeah.
But open enough and open to the point where it's not, like, bottled up. That's, I think, how it should be nowadays.
Because I'm imagining, like, what dad comes home, you know what I'm saying? And on those days where maybe now you're reflecting back and thinking maybe he was stressed, right? What if he said to you, like, I had a really rough day at work today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not in a good place right now. What do you have going on? I'll do my best to help you. Imagine having that dialogue with your kid, like letting them know, like, I still want to be here to help you, but understand right now I've got some shit going on with me too.
Like, I think your dad is a good example, who, from my experience, you would consider more of like a stern dad, right? And think about all the things that he's dealing with through work and stress and struggles. All of those can impact the way that he interacts with you or Revi or whoever it is. And I think when that dialogue is open, it's better communication. Really, it's communication at the end of the day. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I think there was a justified reason for it, but I feel like our parents' generation, like, and we know this with how mental health has developed and how we're, like, putting emphasis on it now. But, like, think about people we know, adults that are our parents' age. Like, how many of them had outlets and resources to be able to discuss this stuff, right? That alone, because I understand people the way that I do, like, there's no way that I'm gonna trust that motherfucker. Like, if you if you haven't done the work, like, if you haven't, and like, everybody goes through things and learns things and experiences things, but it's like, do you know, like, have you been, like, intentful with it, right? Like, have you identified this as something that, like, needs to be done, not just for my kids, but for me, right? I feel like, and it's no fault of the last generation because that's how they were taught, but I feel like there was significantly less emphasis on the importance of mental health. Yeah. And that has resulted in, like, very, like, stoic parents being like, no, this is the way because it, like, we survived, right? And we made it.
You hear that so many times. People will call our generation snowflakes when we talk about problems. For God's sake, God forbid we have a fucking problem and we need to like get some shit off our chest and work through it.
Our parents' generation didn't have snowflakes because that wasn't acceptable.
Yeah.
I do think it's a problem. Like, if you're too, like, oh my problems,
everything's
like, that's
a problem.
Gonna pass down to your kid
Yeah.
too. Fix the fucking problems.
Yes.
Right. And, like, that's my point, is, like, I don't blame anyone for not having done that, but to tell me that, like, you know everything, it's like, well, do you? Because I've been doing the work myself and I don't know shit, right? It's just do the best you can, get as close as possible, but make the effort to be conscious and diligent and intentful with it. I don't know. I think our parents, especially dad, has done a good job of that. But I think parents in general of the last generation just didn't have the opportunity to understand the importance of that. And that is like, we are a result of that. Right.
Here's a question for anybody. Do you think that it is better to be like closed off to mental health, like let's say our parents, or so open, like the kids that are going to be coming up now. Cabs, you got some thoughts on that?
This is exactly what Cabs asked last episode.
Oh, did you ask us already? Sorry.
No, I would like to hear some more opinion on it too.
Oh, I wanted to hear your guys' opinions on that, because like I could also see it going the other way.
I'll let you pull your mic closer, and I have thoughts. I said it a little bit. I agree that you can kind of stray too far.
Mm-hmm.
You can overthink, overanalyze, overshare to a point where you do it so often that like you're not addressing the problem. That's exactly like what you're saying, Jess. It's like if you're only fixating on the problem and you're only talking about the problem but not working towards solutions and not trying to understand the root of it and get through it, what's the point? Right? At some level, you got to start taking action. It is important to bring things up at first. It's important to be aware of mental health and all that kind of thing, but you got to start taking action to try and improve it, right? Does that make sense to like what you're talking about? Is that kind of the avenue you were getting at?
Yeah, I mean, like the too closed off parent is a archetype that we can all understand.
That's a bad thing.
Right? We know what that is, but now, like, it was very rare to have somebody on the opposite end of the spectrum with the previous generation. But this generation, that's going to be the problem.
An emotionally dumping parent could be a possibility.
Well, and like a parent, I mean, parents who become dependent on their kids because they don't have anybody else to emotionally dump on. And then they emotionally dump on their kids, and then that burden of like being the rock for the parent is a problem of its own.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not fixing the issue. That's a new issue.
That's a new issue,
right?
yeah.
Which one's worse?
That's the question.
Well, don't do either. Like I feel like there is an in between. Like there's 100% in between.
Sure.
And I think the difficult part and your job as an individual before you become a parent is get as close to that in between as you can, right? Because your kid is not going to do well if you are just like completely out of control emotionally, right? Because they're not equipped to handle that. Your kid is not going to do well if you're completely closed off, because they need love and they need connection and they need that relationship, right? And we see the products of that in all the time, right? Kids of parents who are too emotionally closed off, right? Kids of parents who are too emotionally dependent, right? It fucked them up.
It fucks them up
somewhere in the middle.
some way or another.
Do the work to find the middle.
Yeah. Cabs, what do you think, man? Like, and I'll kind of summarize a little bit of what you've just shared between the two, you, Brandon and Jesse. You need to be mentally sound yourself and understanding how that can affect your kids. That's maybe something new that our generation is going to experience. We understand the value of knowing where we're at and how that then gets impressed upon our kids. A thing that we talked about just briefly was dialogue. And that's something that you said Vivian's been looking into, where there's dialogue openly between your kids about what's going on with you a little more, not to the point where you're emotionally dumping, because we think that might fuck them up just as much. Cabs, what do you think about mental health? If your theoretical life becoming a parent, what would that look for you?
Parental advocate over here. I like the dialogue thing Brandon was talking about. That makes a lot of sense to me. Because kids, I feel like, are like sponges in that way. If you're being open with them, they're going to learn to be open. And then I'll just be worried about being too open with them. Yeah. But no, that makes a lot of sense. So if I were to have kids, it'd probably be definitely in that direction where I'd want to be open with them.
Yeah.
Just to teach them that.
Yeah, I think that's good. So basically, if you were to like fast forward, let's say 20 to 30 years, do you think that our society is going to be so much like, let's say the kids, let's say my child and her age of kids, would you assume that they're going to be so much better with their mental health?
I'm hoping.
You think that would be the case because of all things like this and it becoming more normal? Do you think that by us as a society being more open about this, our kids are going to be in a much better place 30 years from now?
I hope so. But something interesting about that, I think that we'll get to a better place where mental health is better understood. I think that there's going to be new problems.
Yeah, that's the. Yeah,
I think this is the problem of our generation, or one of the major problems of our generation is mental health. It's talked about so often. People know it's a problem now. People know that it's worth looking into, right? But once we get a handle on that, maybe it takes a couple generations, but once we get a handle on that, there will always be something new that becomes the latest challenge for that generation, right?
Yeah.
It's like we prestiged. Like
in Call of Duty.
It's like we grew,
And we prestige, so we reset a little bit and have to go through all the challenges again.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean we're not cracked at COD.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You might say level 1, but you're level
Yeah.
1,
Yeah.
10th prestige.
Yeah, it's like I got all my fall camos.
Yeah. Back in the day.
Huh.
It's like first world problems.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, like when you prestige, the problems just get, if there are problems, they just get worse,
Mm-hmm. I think it's a luxury to think about mental health.
Yeah, it is a luxury.
Sometimes I think it's a luxury. I think that everybody should be allowed, and it would be great if everybody in whatever part of the world you're in was given the space to think about this kind of stuff. That's one of the beauties of the internet. This podcast reaches people who are outside of Vancouver, for example. There are other podcasts out there that do similar things for people.
Not good ones.
Hey, there we go. For the best. But you make a good point, though, where first world problems, I think it's a luxury for us to talk about this and sit down and think about this all the time. If your life is focused on survival, this is not necessarily part of that hierarchy of needs where it's going to be addressed as soon as it is. And that's what I think I mean by there will be another problem. I think that, the future generations are going to get a better and better handle on this. But for us in this modern Western world here, right, there's going to be something else. We'll find something else to pick on and dissect and dive into. Myself, I think, for a moment, I'll share, and we'll wrap up right after here. I think that piece of trying to be open and like that child of mine one day, knowing that they can always come to me and that's like a relationship that I want. I think that's the approach that I want with mental health, is that dialogue piece. I think that's the part that I resonated the most with out of this last question here, is the importance of like you have a real fucking conversation with your kid, however old they are. Just talk to them. Just talk to them and be there, be present. I mean, when Louise and Christine were on the podcast talking about the importance of dads in a daughter's life, right? Go check out that episode, Brandon. Talking about the importance of the presence of a dad there is just be present. That was the message that they kept having, right? And I think that so much of understanding mental health comes from openness. That's the root of this podcast, is be open. That is what lets you uncover things. That's what lets you dive deeper. And having that relationship with my kid, that's what I want.
Okay, not to like get the podcast going at the end of the podcast, because I feel like you're kind of wrapping up. What if you're somebody as a dad who is like too open about all the problem? Like, when would you say it's good to be closed off about some certain things that you're dealing with as a dad? Like what? Like
I wouldn't talk about financial troubles that I was going through. Let's say that was happening. I would keep that off the table. I wouldn't want my kid to worry about money. And that's from my own experience. Mm-hmm. My mom did not talk about financial troubles with me, but I saw it, right? I saw it happen.
So that was something,
and
she
that's
wasn't
been
open
something
with,
that I've been aware of, right? I get
Interesting.
stressed out when I start to get like a little bit of credit card debt.
Yeah.
And I think that's picked up from like understanding how my mom was with money. I would try to like protect certain things that I know my own experience. That to answer that question is going to be a subjective thing, I think. I think I can do my best to shield things that I think should be shielded from my own experience. But otherwise, I'm going to be open because it worked well for me.
I don't think you should ever go to your kids with your problems.
Not go exactly.
You should have your problems figured out. Be somebody who can figure out your problems so that you can be present with your kid.
But like some
But I
problems
think
you
the
can't all
openness,
figure it out.
though-
It's not like every problem's gonna be figured out when you're a dad or a mom.
But that's where I think the dialogue comes in. Let's say you're trying to be open with your kid. You're trying to understand what's going on in their life. That's what I mean. I want them to open up to me as much as possible. But if I was in a space where I'm not able to be the best dad for them in that moment there, that's when I will take my turn to be open and say, hey, maybe I've got some things going on right now. I want to listen. I want to be there for you. And I will be. But if I seem a little off, here's why. I might not even go into detail. I've talked about that plenty of times. When you don't know what you're upset about or frustrated about, it's good enough to say, for example, to a partner, I don't know what I'm frustrated about right now, but I'm not doing great.
Yeah.
Let's still have a conversation.
Yeah.
I could do that with a kid and see how it works.
I have one more question.
Please.
Kids like, this guy's fucking
It's like my dad's fucking whack. I have one more question for Kabir.
Oh,
The just genuine question.
sure.
So like on a scale of 1 to 100%, like what percentage chance do you think you would have a kid?
It's hard to say because like right now I'm completely closed off to the
So
idea.
it's a zero, like zero.
But I know my mind might change in the future. That's the thing. Like I know it's likely going to change though. Well, I don't know that. I'm like
assuming that will happen.
I'm almost leaving the pathway open essentially. You know, like I'm leaving
Yeah.
the door open,
Right.
but I ain't stepping in that direction.
Nice. You might get dragged in somehow.
Yeah, there's something. I see something behind the door. Or something.
Maybe you'll find the
Fucking
right.
breeze
Maybe you'll
coming
find the
through.
right girl. You'll find the perfect girl, and then she'll really want to have a kid, and then you'll just be like, fine.
that doesn't sound good.
I mean,
That
I'm just
doesn't
saying
sound
it
good.
might that might. Be
I don't
want
to say fine.
Mhm.
I don't want to settle for.
And
So,
I
like,
don't
let's
think
just
you
set
should
on, like,
become
maybe
a
there's,
parent
like,
saying
10% chance, maybe 20%. I would say, knowing you.
This guy's all numbers.
Yeah,
Yes, no.
20% chance.
35.
No,
35%.
No,
I say
Maybe
definitely
it's like
not
50.
more than a
I would say
third.
20% chance sounds reasonable.
I'd say there's 100% chance everybody's gonna watch next week's episode, and I hope there's 100% chance everybody loved this one. Happy Father's Day to everybody. I hope you enjoyed a good weekend with your dads. For those of you who can spend it, people like me who don't have a dad or people who have lost a father, thoughts are with you too. You know, I mean, Father's Day was weird for me growing up. Sometimes they'd make me make a card for my mom. You still got to work things out in your life. Anyways, everybody, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll catch you next week. Peace. Good job, boys. Everybody.
It was like we're wrapping this one up.
That fucking outro was hilarious.